Hello guys, and welcome to the show. I'm going to try to explain to you guys what I see going on in the situation. And I'm just going to talk to you guys about what's going on. First off, the Brexit. The damage has already been done. And the biggest damage, not from a hard Brexit. A hard Brexit won't do as much damage as what they're doing right now. The longer that they keep this going, this thing they have going now with extensions, the longer they keep these extensions going, the more damage it's going to do. If they go ahead and they have a hard Brexit, the damage will be immediate and it'll be severe, but it won't be as bad as if they continue to delay. The longer they delay, the worse it's going to be. And so let's take a look at what's going on. I'll read a few things to you. Tory activists. This is what they said. Former Tory leader Liam Duncan Smith warned that the party would be absolutely devastated if it fought in the elections. So the elections are coming up. On the EU parliamentary elections are coming up on the 23rd of May. Now, if the United Kingdom is still in the European Union, by that point they're going to have to take place in these elections. And Tory MP Mark Francis also suggested Tory activists could refuse to help elect Tory candidates in the European election. He told the Mail Online, this is the Sun, this is being quoted from the Sun, that the EU doesn't want an unhelpful and unhappy group in the European Parliament, and local conservative parties will not be working to get conservatives elected under the circumstances. Now, also, leading Brexiteer Jacob Rees-Mogg suggested MPs should adopt civil disobedience tactics if they have to go into the European elections. He says that he suggested blocking the European Union's budget and its plans for an EU army. So they're going to try to obstruct the European Union's parliament if they get in there. Don't you think the European Union doesn't know about this? Now also let's talk about Macron, the leader of France. He has slapped down Tusk's calls for a flex tension. The flex tension is giving them a whole year, to decide on this. And he says that the United Kingdom needs to answer key questions or face a no deal. So France basically is taking a hard line, but they're going to have a big meeting a couple days before the 12th of this month, which is the deadline. And the European Union is going to meet together and they're going to talk this thing over and they're going to decide whether to give another extension or not. Theresa May's requested an extension. They're going to decide. Now, I don't know what the decision's going to be at this point. But what I can tell you is, if they give her the extension, it's going to be worse damage. The damage is going to continue. This damage this is doing to the United Kingdom's economy. Now, the United Kingdom's economy is a very huge, powerful economy. The thing is it affects the whole global economy. Now, to understand where we're going with all of this, if the United Kingdom enters into a recession, and this looks extremely likely at this point, because, like I say, the damage has already been done. They've done the damage. And the longer they do this delay, the more damage is being done to the United Kingdom's economy. They're going to enter into a recession. If they enter into a recession, so does Germany. And so what we have is, we have the European Union in general, because Italy has already entered into a recession. Germany is barely above recession territory. And the same with the United Kingdom. Okay, so the European Union is starting to enter into a recession. The United States is entering into a slowdown. This is why we have Donald Trump requesting from the Federal Reserve to go back to quantitative easing 4 and also to lower interest rates. The Federal Reserve has not done this yet. They haven't started quantitative easing 4, and they haven't lowered interest rates yet. Okay? They're hoping that this market that has been going up and up and up on hot air, it will continue to go up and up and up on hot air. And in fact, they're hoping that they could even raise interest rates one more time. This is what they would hope for in the perfect world. But this is not a perfect world, and what's happening is the United States economy is undergoing a slowdown. Donald Trump can see this. He's on top of it. So, he's looking for quantitative easing 4. It's almost like a drug addict that has to continue to constantly take the medicine, not medicine, but what he needs. He has to get his fix, so-called fix. This whole thing is set up according to the way it was originally set up. Now, when this was set up back around 1914, the monetary system we have now was set up by the central banks. How it was set up? It was set up in a way that the credit would continue to expand worldwide as industry would expand. So it wasn't a problem. As long as industry and as long as the world's base of capacity for being able to grow was able to grow exponentially, then the monetary system would grow along with it through credit expansion. And so that's the way our monetary system is set up. That's why the dollar has lost 97% of its purchasing power, is through this credit expansion. And it has to continue to expand, because if it contracts, the whole thing will melt down. So there's only one way to continue to expand the ever-expanding monetary system, and that's you got to continue to extend credit further and further and bigger. In other words, you got to keep blowing the bubble up, and you can never let the bubble shrink because it destroys the entire system. This is the way it's set up at its core. So when you realize this, you also realize what happened in 2008. In 2008, we had a contraction of the world's economy, and it's not designed to contract. So what they had to do was they had to artificially expand the credit to outpace the world's contraction. And of course, China helped along. China built ghost cities, and they built infrastructure programs, and they helped to support the world's economy on their side, while the Federal Reserve worked on their side to increase the credit supply. And so between the two countries working together, China and the United States, they were able to stem off this contraction that happened in 2008. From then till now, they were able to put it off into the future. But now what's happened is the world is starting to contract again. And the credit is starting to contract. And there's only one way that they can move, because this entire system is set up for expansion, not contraction. They have to continue to expand it. And they can't expand the general economy, all of the factories and everything else, because that's contracting. So there's only one way they can go. They're going to have to continue to expand the credit and the monetary supply. And that's what quantitative easing 4 is all about. That's what lowering interest rates is all about. This continued expansion. But there's a problem with this. They're down to the last 3% of the dollar. They've expanded the credit all those years, and they've used up 97% of the dollar. They got 3% left. And if they continue to expand the monetary base and continue to expand credit, what's going to happen is that last 3% is going to start to be eroded very quickly. And so this is where we're at right now. We're at the beginning of this next expansion in the credit supply that they're going to have to do, because it's starting to contract again, just like in 2008. It contracted. This is going to be a more severe contraction. And so they're going to have to meet that contraction with a more powerful expansion of credit. It's a never-ending game that they keep playing. And what it does is it tends to kick the can down the road. But last time it happened in 2008, when they expanded the credit supply, they also started a process of inflation in place. And there was talk about a hyperinflation occurring in all those different years, after 2008, all the way up to about 2017. There was talk, when they had all those newspaper articles out there and everything, there was talk of a hyperinflation coming. And they thought it was going to come in 2013, 2014, 2015, 2016, and it never came. And the reason why it didn't come was the contraction of 2008 was so severe that the money that they put in, all it did was it stemmed off that contraction. And so basically, the Fed walked that tightrope line between inflation and deflation. A very, very careful line they were able to walk until now, with a small amount of consumer inflation. Now what's happening is there's a war going on between deflation and inflation. Of course, when they expand this credit supply again, when they expand the credit, and they have to, when they get this next contraction, what they're going to do is they're going to push it off of that line, that thin line between inflation and deflation, and they're going to push it into the inflation side. So what we're going to see is we're going to see inflation start to come back, but it's only going to come back slowly at first. It's not going to be an instantaneous hyperinflation, boom, like that, you're in hyperinflation. One day you're... This is not how hyperinflation works. How it works is it's a slow loss of confidence in the purchasing power of the currency. So people start to spend their money faster and faster, but it's a slow process that leads into it. It's not something that instantaneously occurs. Bang, you're in a hyperinflation. It doesn't work like that. It's slow. It's insidious. It starts with the velocity of money starting to pick up. And this is what's going to happen when they have quantitative easing 4, and they go back to lowering interest rates back down again. Then what we're going to see is a slow increase in the velocity of money and a pickup in spending, because all that new money is going to start to hit the system. This time's going to be different than 2008 because they're going to have to do it bigger. Last time they started to create an economic recovery, but it wasn't fully developed. It was like they were saying, oh, economic recovery, if you remember, a few years ago, But there wasn't any real economic recovery. But there was enough of a recovery where they could claim an economic recovery, and a lot of people didn't question it. A lot of people believed it. And that's because they did increase things a little bit, increase economic activity and so on. And we're still feeling the effects of that. If they hadn't have done that, we would have had a meltdown and went into a severe depression in 2008. Of course, it would have been over by now, and the economy would have been in much better shape if they had let it proceed in that way, but they didn't. They papered over it with money, and they actually increased the credit supply. They're going to do the same thing all over again this time around. But this time around is going to be different, because this time around the Federal Reserve and the world central banks do not have as many tools to work with, for one thing. And the second thing is they're going to have to increase the monetary supply to the point where they go over that line, and that line between that balancing point that they've been running on, between deflation and inflation, where they've been going since 2008 till now, they're going to push it over the edge toward inflation. Once they trip that switch, and they go back to quantitative easing 4, and they go back to creating all this money, new fresh money, unsterilized monetary, just filling Wall Street again with money, there's no limit to how high the stock market can go. But it's going to be rocket fuel for gold, silver, and cryptocurrencies as well. This is going to be extremely hard on the dollar. The dollar index may not start to drop that much on the dollar index because the EU uses the euro, and the euro represents over 50% of the US dollar index. And the euro's not doing so well either. So you got to understand that the dollar index is a basket of currencies where the dollar is probably the best one. So I mean, if gold was in there as part of the US dollar index, the US dollar would go down to nothing because gold would be far better. But it's not. And so the dollar index might not drop that significantly because of the other currencies it's going up against, like the euro, because they're not as good as the dollar, you know. And so, but at the same time, what you can purchase with that dollar is going to be starting to disintegrate slowly at first, and then it's going to speed up as time goes by. So what we're looking at is going to be a slow progression into hyperinflation. But as that ball gets rolling down that hill faster and faster, we're going to find that the inflation increases faster and faster and faster. It's basically like this. The last time in 2008 when we had a crisis, look at what they did. They're going to do the same thing again this time, except picture it like them pushing a car up to the edge of a cliff back in 2008. And they pushed it so it was teetering on the edge of the cliff. And that's what created the economic recovery. It's the same conditions that would create a hyperinflation. Created the economic recovery from 2008 forward by their stimulus measures. That's like pushing the car up to the edge of the cliff and it's teetering, but it doesn't fall over. It just kind of balances there. And that's what they did. They balanced that car all the way up till now. This time, they're going to push the car up, and they're going to push it a little bit too far, and this time it's going to fall down the cliff into hyperinflation. That's what's going to happen this time. Because the central banks do not have the tools that they once had. So, conditions have changed. One of the things was, when the Federal Reserve was doing quantitative tightening, I thought that they would hang diamonds. I thought they would stay at it a lot longer, and I didn't think that they would regress so quickly and pull back away from these programs. I never anticipated them to pull away this quickly. For crying out loud, the stock markets never crashed or anything, and they've already pulled back. They've already pulled their horns in. They've already pulled back and pulled away. I expected them to be much more tenacious in sticking with this. And I expected it to cause a market crash. Now that they're pulling away from this, it's making the market crash more unlikely, but it's making the possibility of heading right into inflation much more likely. Okay? So the European Union, though, is going to be the center of this crisis. You can see this developing. And the United States is going to be drawn into this crisis that's centered in the European Union. What's going to happen then is the United States is going to try to stimulate their way out of it and try to stimulate the whole world's economy at the same time. This is going to have a profound effect on the purchasing power of the dollar. So we're heading into some very interesting times. I can see that one of the keys to all of this is what's happening in Great Britain right now, in the United Kingdom, with these extensions that Theresa May has possibly handled this the worst to damage the British economy. This is probably the worst way you could possibly handle this, is to constantly delay this and delay this and delay this. And if they continue to delay this, they're going to do irreparable damage to the British economy. And this will lead Germany into a you unanimous world central bank stimulus of the economy, which is going to affect the purchasing power of the fiat currencies. Rocket fuel for gold, silver, and crypto. What more can I say? And we already see the effects of this. Gold has had a few little bumps up and down, but gold has been staying strong, roughly up close to $1,300. Silver has been staying mostly over $15, and cryptocurrencies starting to heat up too. And it's only going to get worse if they start quantitative easing 4, and it's only going to get worse if they lower interest rates back down again. And they're going to have to do that very soon, I think. So anyway, listen, this has been to keep you guys updated on what's going on. Thank you guys for listening. Give me a thumbs up on my channel, like and subscribe, and I figured I'd have this little talk with you guys and kind of show you what's going on with everything. Bye-bye for now, guys.